Hey everyone, it's me again. I'm going to continue reading from my book, The 1900s. America's Less Privileged. The magnificence of American wealth contrasted sharply with the sorry lot of the American poor, whom society, as the poet Vachel Lindsay, I think that's how you say the first name, put it, had made ox-like, limp, and leaden-eyed. In 1910, the non-agricultural laboring force consisted of more than 30 million men and 8 million women, most of whom worked too long and earned too little. Between one-third and one-half of the industrial population lived in poverty. Their children ordinarily left school to find work. Only one-third of the American children enrolled in primary schools completed their courses. Less than one-tenth finished high school. Work for men, women, and children were arduous. Those engaged in manufacturing were on the job between 44 and 50 hours a week. On the average, more than 52 hours. Industrial accidents were common and conditions of work unhealthy and sometimes despicable. Usually workers had to suffer the disasters alone. Employer liability laws, where they existed, were inadequate. There was no social insurance against accident, illness, old age, or unemployment, nor were there child care centers where women workers could safely leave their children. Indeed, child labor remained common throughout the country, and the slums where most workers lived were as bad as they had been in the 1890s. New kinds of mobile slums were developing. The slums of migratory workers. Some immigrants, including Asians, some Native Americans, some black workers, and Chicanos, many were leaving some marginal small farms to follow the wheat and harvest north from Texas, or to pick fruits and vegetables along the west coast. So too, the mining and lumbering counts of the South and West offered to workers only a life of drudgery, brutality, danger, and poverty. Blah. Life was equally dreary for the thousands of Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, and Filipinos who worked on the sugar plantations of Hawaii. The inequities in American society evoked a variety of responses, ranging from the complacent to the outraged. Most of the well-to-do, the business elite, and the professional men who had identified with them and served them, believed as they long had success with a function of virtue and poverty, evidence of sin. As the century turned, they were satisfied with existing conditions, and they remained fixed in their belief in minimal government. Other self-respecting men and women as a comfortable middle class harbored some anxieties about their own futures, but few doubts about the merit of American institutions. But a minority of the rich and of the comfortable were receptive to the messages of protest and the efforts at particular social remedy that characterized the early years of the new century. That receptivity reflected in part a dread of drastic change and the kind of radical agitation that punctuated the 1890s. Reform in that view was preferable to revolution. Further, the center of American consciousness was slowly acquiring a new content. It produced a growing understanding of the efforts of some of the less privileged to improve their lot, a sympathy for the protests of the best informed against the inequities of American life, and though rarely a tolerance for the outrage of that small minority of Americans who were committed to rapid and radical social improvement. The Poor of New York. Charles Reade's observation in this excerpt from the introduction to How the Other Half Lives, his 1890 expose of the dreadful living conditions of New York City's poor, rang just as true at the turn of the century as they had 10 years earlier. Conditions like the one Reed described the field movement for reform that characterized the first decade of the 20th century. Today, 3/4 of New York's people live in the tenements, and the 19th century drift of the population to the cities is sending ever-increasing multitudes to crowd them. The 15,000 tenant houses that were the despair that Sanitarium in the past generation has swelled into 37,000, and more than 1,200,000 persons call them home. What the tenements are and how they grow to what they are, we shall see. The story's dark enough, drawn from the plain public records to send chill to any heart. If it shall appear that the sufferings and the sons of the other half and the evil they breed are but as a just punishment upon the community that gave it no other choice, it will be because that is the truth. The boundary line lies there because while the forces for good on one side vastly outweigh the bad, it were not well otherwise. In the tenements, all the influences make for evil because they are the hotbeds of the epidemics that carry death to rich and poor alike. The nurseries of pauperism and crime that fill jails and police courts that throw off a scum of 40,000 human wrecks to the island asylums and workhouses year by year. That turned out in the last 8 years of around 500,000 beggars to prey upon our charities. That maintain a standing army of 10,000 tramps with all that implies. Because above all, they touch the family life with deadly moral contagion. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. This is their worst crime, inseparable from the system, that we have to own it. The child of our own wrong does not excuse it, even though it gives it claim upon our utmost patience and tenderest charity. What are you going to do about it is the question of today. The first legislative committee ever appointed to probe this sort went deeper down and uncovered the truth. The conclusion forced itself upon it that certain conditions and associations of human life and habitation are the prolific parents of corresponding habits and morals, and it recommended the prevention of drunkenness by providing for every man clean and comfortable home. Years after, a sanitary inquiry brought to light the fact that more than 1/2 of the tenements, with 2/3 of the population, were held by owners who trade the keeping of them a business, generally a speculation. The owner was seeking a certain percentage on his outlay, and that percentage very rarely fell below 50% and frequently exceeded 30%. The complaint was universal among the tenants that they were entirely smeared for, and that the only answer to their request to have the place put in order by payers and necessary improvements was that they must pay their rent or leave. The agent's instructions were simple but emphatic: collect their rent in advance, or failing eject the occupants. Upon such a stock grew this upas tree. Small wonder the fruit is bitter. The remedy that shall be an effective answer to the coming appeal for justice must proceed from the public conscience. Neither legislation nor charity can cover the ground. The greedy capital that wrought the evil must itself undo it, as far as it can now be undone. Home must be built for the working masses by those who employ the labor. But tenements must cease to be good property in the old heartless sense. Philanthropy and 5% is the penance exacted. Please comment, rate, and subscribe down below. And please like and follow me on TikTok. And please buy something from Mercari or eBay, because I really need the money. And please watch my videos and subscribe on YouTube. And please like and follow me on TikTok, because I really need the money. Okay, bye.